everyone. Here is our video on Confucianism and Daoism. There's some basic Chinese beliefs that you see here from the culture, which also definitely come into the religion, with Tian, which is the afterlife or the notion of heaven, definitely ancestral worship, patterns in nature, and the yang and the yin, or the yin and the yang. Tian, during the Shang dynasty of about 1500 to 1100 BCE, this was seen as some omnipotent power that was believed to rule over the world, called Shang Di, and thought of as a personal god. This transitioned in the Zhao dynasty from around 1100 BC to 256 BCE, that explained life through the Tian or heaven principle, some impersonal divine force that controls events, and has this basic cosmic moral principle. Ancestral worship has always been a major part, a major element in Chinese religions and culture. The spirits need to be placated to ensure a positive influence. We do this with what we do. How would my ancestor react in this situation? This ancestor would not be happy if I did this or that. Patterns in nature, we need to learn to work with nature and discover its underlying patterns. And then the yang and the yin, the universe definitely expresses itself, not in opposite, but in complementary principles, like light and dark, day and night, hot and cold, sky and earth, summer and winter, male and female, left and right, front and back, up and down, in and out, sound and silence, birth and death, strong and weak, dynamic, odd, stable, even. We receive a dynamic balance between these forces. Everything contains its opposite and will eventually become its opposite. Darkness of the night leads to the dawn of day. A blazing sun eventually sets and leads to darkness. So some major principles there. Daoism from Lao Tzu, the old master, the old teacher. The Daoism probably goes back to him. Some believe it was virginally conceived, the virginal conception. He was an archivist, a librarian, historian for many years, who grew tired of his job and tried to get out of China, travel on an ox to the western border, but the border agent would not let him pass until he wrote down all of his teachings, and that's where we get the Tao Te Ching. About 5,000 Chinese characters. Then he left China and never be seen again. Some later Taoists deified him as the divine incarnation of the Tao. Regardless, this is all the same, regardless if you spell it with a T, as I have here in the bold at the top, or a D, as I have at the bottom. It's all the same Taoism, same religion, with a T or a D. Regardless of how you spell it, you pronounce it with a D, Tao. The Tao Te Ching is the second most published book behind the Bible, the second most. Classical book about the way and its power. That's how you would translate that into English. This is definitely the greatest classical document of Taoism, seen as its central scripture, one of the world's greatest books, again, the most widely published behind the Bible alone itself. Took several centuries for it to be edited into its current form that we have today. 81 chapters, going back to somewhere around 350 BCE, probably the work of several people than just one. There's definitely a deliberate, intentional lack of clarity with no clear order, high regard of repetition. Its meaning depends on who interprets it. If you're more political in nature, then it's a rule book for how to rule and be a leader. If it's more religious focused, then you can definitely gain spiritual insight from it. Or just practical, living in harmony with the universe. It does make references to the Tao, which we can review in this next slide. The Tao is definitely beyond any description. We can translate it in English as way, existence, pattern, process. Can't put into words exactly what the Tao is. The Tao is nameless, it's eternal. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of all things. So we can try to explain the Tao, but it's ultimately beyond human language, human words, human letters and syllables and sounds. It cannot be named. Like we can name a tree, we can identify a bird or a car or a door. The Tao has no form, though. It can be experienced and followed by every being, though. It is the origin of everything. Everything is a manifestation of the Tao, similar to how Hinduism teaches about the Brahman or what Buddhism teaches about the Buddha. It's how nature expresses itself. It's definitely a mysterious reality. The named way is the mother of all things. The nameless way is the origin of heaven and earth, that we see here in this quote. Um, this is eternal, therefore it has no beginning or end. The origin of heaven was without beginning or end. So the Tao, definitely beyond human language. Um, the Tao does take on the meaning of ultimate truth, the one and transcendent. It's invisible, it's inaudible and perceptible. It's not nameable. It's an unmarked trail that one must travel to know. Um, it's usually called the way of nature and regarded as the balance or harmony between two opposite but complementary cosmic powers, the active and the aggressive, the yang, and the passive yielding called the yin. It makes nature move in the way that it does. So it's called the way or rhythm of nature or the universe. The goal of life is to live in harmony with the Tao, to experience it constantly. So we leave behind our own selfish desires. We do this with following cultural expectations and societal norms. So that's the Tao. We also have Wu Wei, which is effortlessness. It's no action. It's actionless action, no strain. Avoid unnecessary action. Things in nature, they happen quietly. They happen effortlessly or naturally, like growth or birth, planets rotating, seeds growing into trees. We live healthy and we survive with natural instinct. Nature only does what's necessary. So a bowl is able to hold a liquid or a solid. It fulfills its purpose by not doing anything, but yet it fulfills its purpose. The door being open lets air move in and about the hallway and into a classroom, but the door doesn't do anything, but yet it does so much. We want to be like that bowl. We want to be like that door. Simplicity, simplicity, is definitely important as well. We want to eliminate the artificial and the unnecessary. We want to appreciate the simple. There is some distrust in higher formal education. We got to give up learning and put an end to your troubles. Ignorance is bliss. Endless speculation and philosophizing gets you nowhere. Gentleness, we want to hate weapons and war. We want to avoid all unnecessary violence. And we want to embrace relativity. We want to um, see things from our own limited point of view based on our own perceptions and concerns. Don't see things for the way that they are, but for the way we want to see them. We see us in them. Relativity there. Um, Zhuangzi, he definitely added to Taoism with his own writings named after him. 7 inner chapters and 26 outer chapters, many whimsical stories. Are you a human who dreamt of a butterfly last night? Or are you a butterfly who dreams of a human? So he's really trying to get you to think more deeply, not just black and white, to acknowledge all the gray. So reject all barriers in thinking, embrace the gray. Taoism became organized and it developed more into a religion, as what we see in other cultures. It definitely absorbed many Chinese worldview elements with ancestor worship and combined different strands and schools of philosophy and meditation and eventually immorality, moral, ethical precepts as well. It definitely connects the body with a focus on physical health as well too. Taoism was able to survive through the Zhang Daoling, a hierarchical structure, providing an organizational feature to it with different parishes, known as the Way of the Heavenly Masters. So, trying to organize Taoism. more with a hierarchy and with a structure and with monasteries. The complete perfection order, which deliberately did blend a hybrid focus with Buddhism, Confucianism, and Daoism. So Daoism does definitely take on certain elements of Buddhism to be more organized, um, and to be more political, and to have more sacred books and more monasteries and more sutras. So you see the Taoist canon, its collection of scripture. Canon is what canon basically means. More than 1,000 books. More than 1,000 books. Looks like all the sutras that you have in Buddhism. A collection of hundreds of deities. There's the Taoist trinity of three purities, with the Tao, the heavenly worthy of numinous treasure, of Lao Tzu, of course, and the mother Li, his mother, a female deity. Taoism is definitely has a major presence in Taiwan, Hong Kong, those two island countries, though Hong Kong is now part of China, and then Malaysia and Singapore. Confucius, he was born in 551 and dies in 479 BC. Also known as the Master Kong. This all comes into Latin, and then from the Latin it comes to us in English. So that's where we get Confucius from. Definitely impoverished childhood, experienced great social, cultural upheaval in China. China was going through great cultural chaos, social turmoil. The whole feudal system collapsed, dynasties. There was just a huge power vacuum. He actually began his public life as a teacher after the death of his mother. Um, he wants to finally get to a perfect, harmonious society. This can be achieved when you have every member of society being cared for and nobody feeling abandoned. Being abandoned is where chaos comes in. Personally, and that personal abandonment, personal chaos can lead to a societal chaos. Society would only function um, if these values are lived out in our relationships. The two ideals, excellent individuals, those can become our social leaders, and a harmonious society can be achieved when everyone fulfills their purpose in society, when everyone exemplifies and manifests virtues between each other in all of our relationships. This is different than Taoism somewhat. The Tao of Confucianism is a Tao of this world, while the Tao of Taoism is more a Tao of the other world, and a world beyond this one. So that's kind of one of the main differences. But we also see other differences with education. There is no distrust of education. Um, you can experience the Tao in this world when you exemplify virtues and your right relationships, and thus fostering a harmonious society. That harmonious society comes about when we, again, manifest virtues as individuals with all of our relationships with other individuals that we have in life. That fosters a social harmony. Virtue is necessary. People do not automatically become what they should be. So we need to teach virtue, so education is celebrated. Education is essential. It's part of our social interaction and how we interact with others in our relationships with each other. So the perfect society is possible if everyone plays their social roles properly. And here are the 5 great relationships. So these are the roles that we have in life. We have the father and son, the elder brother to the younger brother, the husband and wife, the elder and over the younger, and the ruler over the subject. So there definitely is power dynamics here. These are not equal relationships. And this is obviously patriarchal. But these are the 5 right or 5 great relationships, which can be the bedrock to society when everyone fulfills their purpose and their role. And yes, there is, a higher role and a lower role, but both need to exemplify virtue. The perfect society can be seen. The Confucian virtues here, these, when they're practiced, can lead to a junji, the ideal perfect human. Ren is definitely thinking of the other. It's being sympathetic, empathetic, benevolent, considerate, thoughtful, humane, being kind-hearted. That's a main virtue in Confucianism. Li is propriety, being appropriate, following rites and rituals, doing them when they need to be done and doing them correctly. It's controlling one's desires, having good manners, etiquette. It's putting Ren into practice. Shu is reciprocity. It's the golden rule. Do unto others that which you want done unto yourself. Or as Confucius taught it in the negative sense, so sometimes called the silver rule, do not do unto others that which you do not wish done to yourself. How will my actions affect others? Zhao is filial piety. It's devotion, respect, remembrance, and care in our familial relationships, which we, of course, then apply to everybody. We see everybody as our sibling. And then Wen is culture. We have artistic aesthetic needs that allow us to appreciate life more. We can put our talents and gifts into practice, take our amateur skill and show it off, give it to the world, contribute it to society. That's definitely a major part as well. Confucius literature was definitely not just Confucius himself, but predated him and was added by later Confucian scholars too. It's hard to decipher which was written by Confucius and one of his predecessors and one of his followers, but Confucianism does has the five classics and the four books, which includes the writings of Mencius, a later Confucian teacher, as well too. This all became settled by the Song dynasty. You see dated there. Different schools of philosophy. Is human nature good, bad, or somewhere in between? Confucian schools recognize the great abilities of humans and their need for formation, the personality and ethical thinking formation. Taoists, again, they really rejected education. Individuals govern themselves with natural good sense. Mencius is kind of in between innate goodness and human beings being taught. So we had his own writings for sure. It definitely connects with Buddhism. So Confucianism tries to become more of a religion, not just a philosophy, with Confucius's spirit kind of focus and worship, Confucian temples, statues of Confucius, elaborate seasonal type of ceremonies and rituals to try to put it on par as a religion with Buddhism and Taoism. But then there was Zhu Ji. He shaped a system of thought and philosophy in Confucianism. And Wang Yangming, truth can be discovered through intuition. So later Confucian theologians and philosophers. And here you have a quote from the Analects, a sacred text in Confucianism, and then the Tao Te Ching again about the Tao and Wu Wei from the Tao Te Ching, the sacred text of Taoism. And some more from the Tao Te Ching about how to be more Wu Wei, actionless action. Just be like water. Water flowing through a stream softens the roughest rock at the bottom of that stream. But the water doesn't do anything, but yet it does so much. We want to be like that water itself. Just all these good quotes that I have for you.